Hello, ManWomanMyth. It goes without saying that I am a huge fan of your work, and you've always been an inspiration to me in many regards. And these thoughts you've been having, or this video, prompted me to make a response because I've had similar thoughts, albeit I've not been in the exact same situation. Now, the picture you're looking at right now is actually an image I see every time I commute to work here where I live in Germany. Only the placard that I look at also has a couple of lines in it. Moments of happiness in German, that's what it says. And I wanted to start the video with that because, I mean, look at that. It's marketing, it's consumerism, but look at the message that's being A, communicated to women, and then B, to men. Do I like it? No. I also don't have the power to take it down, and I don't think I would. But I think so. I see things that are, I believe, inherently misandric all the time. It's hard not to in this society, in this world, particularly in the West. However, um, I think you touch on some important issues. One of the core issues, although you don't explicitly mention it, is I think, I'm not a big on labels, left, right, but I think all of us who believe in individual autonomy, we appreciate the right of freedom of speech, the right to say what you want, and the right to write what you want and express yourself in written discourse in a way you want as well. And it's I think what you're grappling with, in part, is what I've grappled with in recent years, is not that there needs to be a limit on it, but that in fact there are potentially harmful outcomes. In fact, I'm not even saying that we should curtail freedom of expression and speech, not at all. I'm just saying that there are potentially harmful outcomes, and it's somewhat unavoidable. And I think this is what we grapple with in part. It's kind of a philosophical dedication to certain political principles that have been enshrined in say the classical liberal background that much of our society is founded on, at least originally. And sometimes, we just have to accept things for not being particularly beneficial, even though, for example, that poster, yes, it was offensive, but it didn't violate any laws. On the other hand, what I wanted to say is that the point you make, which is very valid, is men for what since men have since the dawn of time, we've stood by idly and just let things happen. We have practiced the principle of Stoic tolerance, and I suppose the real question that needs to be posed here, ultimately, and perhaps after a fashion, this is the question you're posing to yourself, is has this Stoic tolerance really been beneficial to men? Have we advanced because of it? Are we better off for it? And I think the question has an answer. I think ultimately, no. And we live in an environment these days that can produce posters such as the one you had complained about, and we have to, in my assessment, ultimately take advantage of the tools that are available to us. One of those tools, unfortunately, for better or worse, and I don't see any other options, is saying using the language of PCism and following the spirit of the times and saying I find that offensive. But I don't think, ManWomanMyth, that the issue here is much more one of offense. Perhaps you were offended. I'm offended by that as well, just like I'm offended by that gaudy jewelry placard that I have to look at all the time. It's much more an issue of, is it producing harm? And if you are, obviously, as you have a vested interest in protecting these boys from harm, I think ultimately you did the right thing because you had something removed from their line of sight that could instill all kinds of psychological harm in them, and who knows what consequences it might have in the long run, especially repeated exposure to that kind of thing. And the tools which you had at your disposal, which most of us have, it really, that we don't have a whole lot left other than, well, it's offensive. Most of the time, I don't think people even care if we say, well, it's offensive. I think one suggestion you make is very interesting. Putting similar placards or posters up to in a spirit of irony, to animate people to think about these issues and how partisan it is, and how everything is really just the pendulum just swings in the direction of women virtually every time. That is a very interesting idea, although it's pretty risky. And there are, of course, professional concerns as well. I mean, you're, from what I understand, some sort of IT professional. You don't want to take certain risks. I'm contemplating going back into teaching, although I work manual labor now. And once I take that decision and enter the teaching workforce again, there are all kinds of considerations I don't have to make when I'm working in a warehouse now. It's not really the same thing. And yet, where do you draw the line there? Because in my teaching past, and in the atmosphere and translation offices as well, I encountered quite a great deal of misandry as well. At the time, I wasn't as aware, and I would be much more sensitive to that now these days. But you have to pick and choose your battle. So I don't want to make this too long. In summary, one needs to pick and choose one's battles. One, standing idly by in the spirit of Stoic tolerance has not served men well. We need to do away with that paradigm, I think, ultimately, because we're just not getting anywhere with it, and we never did get anywhere with it. And that suggestion you make, I think, is very provocative and very interesting. I think it could potentially be very effective, and would have some very negative fallout as well. This idea of, I don't know, putting just switching the words around in such a poster, or the rape culture thing, and all these other images you show, that could be very effective as well. But that would take a brave soul, and it might not be worth risking one's career, one's life potentially in doing so. We all know how dangerous this kind of involvement can be. But in this case, I think you did the right thing. You have to. It's just the way it is. You have to take advantage of the tools that are available to you. And if it comes in the language of I feel offended, whether you're offended or not, you were acting for the greater good of the boys in the school, and that's laudable and I think virtuous ultimately. That's all we have available to us, so why not take advantage of it? I don't like it as much as you do, but that's the way it is. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for the great video.